Okay, so here we have a game against Karpov, the new generation.
The new generation. But we played this game in 71. It was actually our first encounter, our first game together with
He
the
was
future
already-
world champion.
He wasn't.
He was not yet world
Not
champion.
yet,
He
not
was
yet.
the big hope of the Soviet chess. The coming star like this. From the Soviet player, and he was already the one of the students of Botvinnik. Botvinnik school. He was his student. Kasparov was his student. Unfortunately, I wasn't his student. He proposed. That was the moment probably decisive in my career, because after our game in Monte Carlo in '68, the only one,
Between
he
you and
proposed
Botvinnik.
with Botvinnik. Yeah, a few months afterwards, he proposed to be my teacher. To be a student in his renowned school from Moscow. And, surprisingly, the Chess Federation of Romania and the Ministry of Sport from Bucharest, they refused the invitation. That is a very big mistake, because of such a level, when you are the youngest grandmaster of the world, to refuse such a thing, is unbelievable. If I was a student from Botvinnik, probably I had also a very good chance to become maybe, one of the candidates, one of the champions, and so on.
Now, is that
You know,
possible? That means you have to move to
No,
Moscow,
no. I could be maybe a few months there, or maybe he could come from time to time to Bucharest. We could find a way, no problem at all. Especially between big friends like Romania from this time with the Soviet Union.
Yes,
it
yes.
was a very good possibility. Jokingly like this.
Yeah.
But okay, coming back to our friend Karpov, we played the Sicilian and he took in d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. Okay, this is the normal Najdorf position from Najdorf, and bishop e2 is more quiet than some other lines, f4, bishop g5, or bishop c4. Yeah, the most violent one, the most sharp one. Okay, bishop e2, but it was a very well-known specialty of the Soviet players, Geller and Karpov himself. Geller was one of his trainers of Karpov, and this time.
Trainers.
And yeah, and the bishop e2, it's more quiet, but also very good. White has always a very small initiative, and he tries later on to provoke some combinations and so on. It's more quiet compared with some other lines. Bishop c4, Sozin, bishop g5, Richterhauser and so on. More f4 also is very well known. This is very sharp. But okay, I play d5. Instead of e5, black has to play e6, which gives also a quiet game and very complicated one. After e6, for instance, white has two possibilities to play f4 immediately or castle. And the game is very complicated. You can have a very complicated game by playing knight bd7 or a more quiet one with bishop e7. But that is some other story, So e5. Later on, he played after e6 in his game candidates matches against Polugaevsky. They had three very complicated games, and as I remember the situation, Karpov won, two games and made a very complicated draw. So a very good result. Polugaevsky was one of the best players for Sicilia in the whole world. So that means that he knew very well what he played. Karpov is. So I prefer to play e5, and after knight b3, bishop e6, everything again will be theory. You have to demonstrate that black has enough counterplay to hold equality, later on. So bishop e6 is all right, castle, knight bd7, f4, queen c7. Taking in f4 gives a small edge for white, as always, So
Why? Because it opens
it opens a little bit the game, and he has all his pieces out. White is better because of this, has some advantage immediately after the opening. So as always in Sicilian, you have to, first of all, you have to equalize with black, and later on play. But if you overstep a little bit to the limit, then you can have very nasty surprises. You remember
Yes, yes.
what can happen in Sicilian
Yeah.
when white
Quick
has
finish.
quick
Quick ending.
combination. Yeah. So until now everything is theory. Okay, a4, bishop e7, a5. Okay, he fixed the the queen side, and he threatens later on to take control, if possible, of the d5 square. If he controls in good conditions the d5 square, white has an edge. White is better, but it's a long way until there, So castle now, and bishop g5. Okay, rook fc8, and he took in c4. I took in c4. He played rook f2. Now, the idea for later on is to put, if possible, the rook in a4. The plan for white is like this. Rook a4, you have to move back the queen to c7. The other rook comes later on to d2, and later on he wants to put a knight in d5 or a piece in d5. And if he has the good knight from b3 against the bad bishop from f6, white has a clear edge. The D file, the control of the C file, and so on. And finally, he comes and he comes and he comes, and you don't have enough counterplay. And that is the idea. So you have to find a way to have some counterplay with black. So rook f2, h6, and now probably he underestimated a little bit the black's possibility, and he took immediately in f6. Even here, if he played bishop h4, maybe white has a small edge. Maybe. It's not clear, but maybe. The good move, in my opinion, was here not to take immediately, but play immediately bishop h4. And, having already the threat, but not taking immediately. No?
Keep the pressure.
Yeah, keep the pressure. So, okay, he took there and took back, and he followed his plan, Rook a4, queen c7, and rook d2. And now I played b5, and the game was drawn.
Yeah.
I mean, he proposed draw, but why? Because now, the game must be played like this, you take in b6. If he doesn't take in b6, black is clearly better, it's no problem. He has counterplay, and if he goes back, for instance, to a1, now after queen c6, black is all right. c6, yeah. Now you attack the pawn there, and now if he plays knight d5, you took in d5, you can take in d5, and he doesn't have time to take with the rook, because he loses the pawn in c2. If he takes with the pawn in d5, he has nothing. And now black is winning if he gives the pawn in c2. So this is bad for white, of course. Here doesn't have enough. After queen c4, black is okay. Queen c4, black has very good game. He controls everything, So, of course, he has to take in b6. Okay, now you take in b6, queen takes b6 check, king, h1. And now the surprise. I wanted to play like this. But playing Karpov, okay, one of the first rounds, he was one of the big favorites also in this tournament. I told you, the rising star of the Soviet chess. Later on, he became world champion. So he was considered already one of the main, candidates for the world title, against Fischer and so on, or against anybody.
Yeah.
He won finally. Okay. But the idea for black here, very good one, was the exchange sacrifice in c3. Rook takes c3. He has to take, everything is forced. He has to take, and now queen c6. And we analyzed later on, and we agreed that black is a little bit better in all positions. I mean, you give the exchange, but you take the central pawn from e4, and that is very important. For instance, now, let's say rook back or rook b4, one of them. Or rook or queen a1. It depends,
Is okay like that, or?
Okay, queen a1, let's say, queen a1.
Yes.
Yeah. Queen a1, and now you can take the pawn from e4. And the idea is clear, Black has pawn for exchange and a very good position. But after knight a5, the game is still very complicated, No, here probably white is winning in this position because after knight a5, he attacks the queen, and if you go back with the queen, you lose the knight from e4.
Yes.
So this is not good.
Yes.
But you can play instead of knight takes e4, you simply rook c8. And black, in my opinion, has a very good position. Pawn, If he takes in a6, you take the queen in e4 or in c3, and the game is excellent for black. If you take in e4, it has to be very careful not to lose this position, because the white structure is very bad. The c3, c2 pawns are terrible. The f pawn is under attack. The queen has a fantastic position in e4. Black has a very normal position, very good one, no? So we analyzed later on, and analysis all over the world. I mean, the game was published everywhere, and everybody agreed that white had nothing, and black has a very small edge like this. So okay, we agreed to a draw, and the game was draw. But the game was very, very interesting, even if it was short enough. Black could demonstrate that the variation is okay. The variation is very good for black, and the idea was also playable. I mean, even if you give the exchange, but it's the right way to do, and black has a very good game. Very important. At this high level, this kind of small problems are very, very important and very good to know. Yes.
That makes the difference between
of course,
winning
always. Or losing.
Or losing, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gheorghiu.
It's a pity. Probably, if I could play later on, a few years later, for instance, this year's 80, 90, like this, when I was also in the top 10 and so, probably I should continue the game. Because
like
it was
like this.
Yeah, it was very pleasant for black. Black has no risk at all. I mean, you could play, without any problem.
Yeah.
Against Karpov, against anybody, against Kasparov, and so on. The position is important. If you have a very strong position, you can play later on. You see what happens. But then I couldn't resist to this offer, and I agreed. Okay, it's all right. Even if I knew that black is a little bit better, Yeah, but the game is important theoretically anyway, because the opponents being against such strong opponents is always a problem. What you decide to play or to accept a draw in such position,
It's tricky.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Hard decision.
Yeah. Because the level is so high that you have to, to think it over twice or three times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
again, the game was very, very interesting. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.